Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Sharon Florentine. Welcome to today's DevOps.com webinar, How to Streamline Incident Response with InfluxDB, PagerDuty, and Rundeck. We have an awesome webinar for you as always, but before we get started, I need to go through some quick housekeeping items with you. First, please remember this event is being recorded, so if you miss any or all of it, you'll be able to go back and watch it again. We'll be sending an email with instructions for how to access the webinar on demand, or you can always visit us at devops.com/webinars, and it will be there for you as well. We are taking questions from the audience throughout today's presentation, so don't wait, don't hesitate. Send your questions in using the Q&A tab on your webinar console, and we will get to as many as possible at the end of the presentation. And finally, we're doing a drawing today for 4 $25 Amazon gift cards, so make sure you stick around until the end to see if you are a winner. With that, I am pleased to introduce to you today Craig Hobbs. He's a Senior Solutions Consultant with PagerDuty. With that, I'm going to turn my camera off and put myself on mute and let Craig take it away.
Thanks, Sharon, and so glad to be here, and welcome everyone to the webinar today on streamlining incident response with InfluxDB, PagerDuty, and Rundeck. This really is a culmination of a lot of different conversations I'm very humbled and privileged to have with different DevOps teams, different SRE teams on what their challenges are with streamlining their incidents and how they approach it, and being able to have open conversations on making suggestions and looking at best of breed tools. So really quick, just about me. Again, as introduced, my name is Craig Hobbs, and I'm one of the solution consultants at PagerDuty. I'm also one of the SMEs of the Rundeck platform within the company. And as you can see, I've probably spent a number of years working on everything from infrastructure monitoring to performance, security, and automation from various companies at various stages in the life cycle. With really all the same focus, and that's really to create solutions that help users and engineers get stuff done. I'm a huge fan of open source, so many of my thoughts and ideas always tend to kind of leverage around community projects and open source. But really the idea is to combine all of the solutions, the platforms, the tools to make life easier or better. So that's always the goal, no matter what the tools are. So that's a little bit about me, and kind of just taking a look at today's agenda of what the focus will be. So, getting started by touching on MTTR and what that means for a lot of different teams, a lot of different definitions around that. But I want to touch on that and touch on its impact. And that'll kind of set the stage for our streamlining. I also want to spend some time with how users can go about shortening the incident response, their incident response times. Look at some of the workflows and tools that are involved in that. Then we'll kind of switch over and do a solution overview. So kind of what a solution will look like, kind of the pipeline of it, put it together, walk it through. And again, this represents just kind of working and talking with different users. So really excited always to share this and get other input from different users, different questions to see what they're doing or see if this resonates. And then finally, dive into a demonstration of the solution. So we'll take it step by step. We'll take a very easy use case, a very easy infrastructure approach, and showcase an example. But we'll also just kind of talk in general about how that just expands out into multiple use cases in multiple areas. And then we'll leave time for questions at the end. So that's a look at what we'll be doing today. So without further ado, let's get started. And I always like to start with some guidance from Gartner. They always seem to be, at the heart of things. But when I started looking through some of their guidance for 2021, and I saw this quote, what actually captured me about this quote and the idea around automation and lowering cost is this is not something that's new or revolutionary to DevOps teams or SREs. Everybody is using automation wherever they can. In every aspect of their tool chain, of their development chain, automation is already extremely prevalent. So the idea that the announcement for 2021 is that automation is going to have this huge impact was not at all a new discovery point. But what I did find interesting is what they mentioned at the end of this quote, and that is that the real gains will come from redesign of operational processes. So what I took away from that is, well, what does that redesign mean? And they don't go into really any details about, the redesigns will incorporate these types of tools or these types of processes. It just says you'll be looking to redesign your operational processes. So that's really where I try to set out and work with other teams of what those designs look like. And with everybody's infrastructure being so different, you're always looking for the best of breed, best fit tools to include in any type of process. So getting started with MTTR and what that means. And when I talk to SRE teams and DevOps teams, they look at MTTR in a lot of different ways. And it's really that R that's so powerful. But with the goal always to be to drive down the R, to drive down the incident itself. But the R could speak to different things. It could be R could be repair, R could be respond, it could be resolve, it could be recover. It can mean so many different things, or it can mean all of those things. In some organizations, they will focus on all of them in many different ways. But for today's case, and for the cases I've been interacting with as of late, MTTR in this case is the mean time to resolve. And that is defined as the average time it takes to fully resolve a failure. So that's what I'm focusing on right now, is that idea to resolve. And this includes time spent detecting the failure, diagnosing the problem, and repairing the issue. So all of that goes into the time to resolve. Again, there's so many different ways to look at that R, but I'm really focused on taking out that, reducing that time that's being spent either waiting or escalating for a particular issue, and getting us back to getting production systems back to normal operations. But really, however you choose to measure it, whatever R grabs you, there's always the constant, and that's to keep that measurement down. So as we look at this, it's still always focused on that pressure of keeping the R down. So looking at just the impact of MTTR on our DevOps teams and SRE teams, what I find most when I get the opportunity to speak to them is that their best practices, while everybody's trying to keep their R down, their best practices are all designed around provisioning for reliable operations. So as they kind of put this together and as they kind of focus on this, it drives their operational processes. So something like lowering impact is really more for their customers. They want to lower that impact to their customers, both internal and external. So that drives their practices. Saving time, and that's really saving time, reducing the need to escalate. So escalations beyond L1 engineers is time taken away from their day, focused on value add work and other operations that they're looking to do, releases, improvements, new deployments. They want to reduce that time taken away from them. Proactive monitoring is always focused on the worry around noise. We want to proactively monitor, but we don't want to jump and snap at every little alert that comes up. So how do we include that idea of getting ahead of something while not overreacting every time something comes up? And finally, overall improvement of service quality through quick acknowledgement and resolution of incidents. So as I started off, the idea of shortening that incident, you're gonna have to have a process in your team of focusing on getting to acknowledging that, resolving that, closing that out, doing that notification, all in a nice smooth stream and pipeline. So this tends to drive the practices of DevOps and SRE teams as they focus on pushing down that R. So what can you do? And we understand what those drives are. We understand that we have automation. We're already doing automation. I'd love to streamline some more, is what I hear from DevOps teams. I'd love to streamline some more. I've got some automation. Maybe I'm already doing the best I can. That's another thing I hear from teams a lot of time. I'm doing all I can. I'm just on a slow boil. It's just, I've taken it as far as I can. But I always speak to the idea that there's lots of tools and lots of options to address end-to-end incident management. And how can we look at what's best for your organization and how you can fit together and put together just the best of breed fit. I'm always looking to give you the tools that I've encountered that really give you best of breed fit. And by best of breed, I'm looking for tools that allow for lots of flexibility, tools that allow me as a developer to be really developer focused, developer first, so that I'm not packed into a specific vendor tool. I want to be able to enhance and plug in new pieces. I want things that are flexible. I want things that are scalable. I want things that are supported. So all of these go into me for best of breed tools. So I'm not tied to the idea of just finding one tool that has some of the things I like. I'm going to get everything I want. So when I get started with talking with teams, I often start with something like this, and that's an idea of what the incident lifecycle looks like and what it's made up of. So at PagerDuty, we talk quite a bit about the incident lifecycle and what you can do to shorten that. And so when I think about the incident lifecycle, and I think about the stages in that lifecycle, I look at areas such as identify, act, mobilize, and resolve. So the stages you see here on the screen, identify being that idea of real-time monitoring, yet limiting the noise, monitoring across my entire infrastructure. So I have physical servers, I have VMs, I have Kubernetes, I have network gear, I have all of this infrastructure and ever growing. CI/CD is ever changing that infrastructure. So I have all of this infrastructure and I need to monitor across it in real time. So I need to identify where problems are happening while limiting the noise. The second area, really act and mobilize. And for identify, that's where my monitoring is. But the monitoring also bleeds into the act, because as it identifies, it needs to act. It just needs to act on the right pieces. But then as I move into the mobilize area, there's a bit of acting and mobilizing, and that's really where the incident management, the incident management platform comes in. Because as the incident management platform now comes in, as now I've identified what I need to mobilize people. I need to escalate to the proper engineers, the proper individuals. I need to perform postmortems. I need to have the proper analytics to let me know what's going on. Maybe I need to raise web conferences. Maybe I need to get to folks in Slack. But I need to act and mobilize and bring all that together in a centralized area. So your mobilize area will generally be that centralized nerve system where every stakeholder can come and interact with the incident. So you want to be able to bring people into an incident as needed. And then finally, the resolve. This is where we see automated runbooks and runbook automation start to play. Although we're now starting to see that play in many different areas, from the identify to the act and mobilize. You can start to automate lots of different pieces there. But traditionally, we've seen the runbook automation now play in the resolve. And the key here is being able to reliably and quickly resolve the production issues or outages, provide support, provide information out to customer care teams, support engineers, dev teams, et cetera, for all the information that they're looking to do, but also do it in a secure manner. So having automated runbooks often leaves security and compliance engineers with a bit of nervousness around the idea of, hey, I don't want to lose control of my organization by now having these automated runbooks just kind of take off and resolve all of my issues. So you want to use them all together, but understand where the strengths and weaknesses are for your organization and what your focus is. So with that, I kind of looked at all of those different areas, the monitoring, the incident response, and the runbook automation, and started fitting together the best of breed tools. And the first tool I came to is InfluxDB, specifically the InfluxDB Cloud time series platform. So this is the elastic platform for real-time monitoring, dashboards, analytics, and metrics processing of time series data. So now I'm thinking about my entire infrastructure. I'm collecting data from all of the different components that make it up. I need to have a centralized area. I can quickly bring that information in, proactively monitor it, sift through it, perform trends, look for anomalies, forecast upcoming issues. So InfluxDB makes that really nice, a purpose-built platform to really handle this type of massive volume. So we think about the number of sources, the number of timestamp timestamped data sensors and applications that come from it. InfluxDB is the right tool, again, with that best of fit ideas of scale, developer focused, and reliability for collecting and monitoring this data. Also, with InfluxDB, it comes with a lot of additional tools, especially focused around developer components. So as part of my solution, I was looking for things where I could, again, plug in specifics based on what I wanted on my platform. Influx provides InfluxDB templates, which are pre-configured solution templates that are part of their open source environment. So there were templates I could grab for monitoring my infrastructure. I could contribute my own templates. I could configure these templates to fit around a particular focus area that I was looking for. So that made it really nice for me to be able to expand my solution. Influx also has an agent for collecting metrics known as Telegraph. So now I could have an agent on the various areas where I am grabbing my time series data, whether that's again my network gear, my servers, my virtual machines, anywhere where that my infra lives. I can now use Telegraph and various and a large list of plugins to now ingest that time series data. And then finally, Influx Cloud has an alert pipeline. And this alert pipeline allows me to work through the various time series metrics and dispatch alerts. So this goes back to one of the first points I was talking about, and that's the idea of being able to sift through noise and act. So now I have all of these metrics. I'm getting the metrics I need. I can analyze the trends. I can analyze the forecasts, but now I can intelligently find what I'm looking for without sacrificing the idea of noise and dispatch intelligent alerts. So the alert pipeline is the engine behind that. In the middle of my solution now, kind of switching from Influx to PagerDuty. So PagerDuty is my choice for incident management. There's always many different choices for incident management on the market. So I'll be the first to acknowledge if there's other tools that you're thinking of, that's great. But PagerDuty really makes it nice and easy for end-to-end business processing, for addressing outages, service interruptions, and any other major incidents to full resolution. The idea now of acting, mobilizing, doing triage are all part of this centralized nervous system, which is PagerDuty. PagerDuty also has lots of great add-ins for automation, integration with other service tools, ticketing systems, integration with a plethora of alerting systems, whether your alerts are coming from Influx or whether your alerts are coming from your service desk, maybe they're coming from emails, maybe they're coming from text messages, wherever they're coming from, PagerDuty can bring all that together as well as correlate messages. So again, coming back to that idea of noise, if I'm getting multiple messages, PagerDuty can correlate all that together really intelligently via AI operations and provide a nice, easy interface for working through the incident as well as performing analytics and postmortem. So my pick there is PagerDuty. And then finally, for runbook automation, I'm going with Rundeck. And Rundeck really provides that secure and traceable execution of my automated jobs. So being able to now securely execute these jobs, going back to some of the worries of losing control by having automated jobs kicking off, I have a complete traceable execution of all the jobs in Rundeck. So from end to end, who, where, what, and when, who's run the job, what did they run, when did they run it, when was it run? All of the information is completely captured and stored in Rundeck. Rundeck can provide orchestration across the entire tool chain for DevOps and SRE. So if you're using multiple tools such as Ansible or Puppet or Chef, you're using Go scripts, you're using Python, you're using commands, you're using API, service endpoints, whatever your choice, Rundeck can orchestrate across all of these different tools and really bring them together into a single secure executable job. So that now drives that automated workflow behind the scenes that after the idea of identifying, acting, and mobilizing, now we can resolve across a larger chain. Other key things about Rundeck, Rundeck does not require a specific language. It uses all of the information that you already have. So if you're using Python, if you're using Go, if you're using Java, you can just drop all that into Rundeck. Rundeck does not force you to change into anything different. It leverages your already created scripts and commands. It's also agentless by design. So there's no agent needed now to connect and go out to the various target systems and services to execute the remediation commands. And it's really made for developers and DevOps and cloud native. So I'm always focused on tools where I can that work best for DevOps teams, that work best for developers, that work in cloud native. Again, all of these tools fit into that best of breed. So that's my tool pipeline that I talked through, and I think the next thing that I dive into with the tool pipeline is what does that pipeline now look like, all fit together. So looking at my incident response kind of end to end on the far left, I start with InfluxDB for my infrastructure monitoring and dispatching my alerts and collecting my time series data. So there is my area of identifying. You can see at the bottom, Influx through Telegraph will be able to collect metrics across my entire infrastructure, no matter where it lives, and now monitor and dispatch those events over to PagerDuty. So Influx can now trigger events into PagerDuty, and here's where I begin to act and mobilize. PagerDuty will bring together the proper engineers, proper escalations, proper stakeholders into one, again, nerve center where we have more analytics, more aggregation of all the different events, can start to correlate across different areas of the infrastructure. So again, having an incident management platform in the middle to act as your brain, if you will, for bringing all this together. But then finally on the back end, I have Rundeck to dispatch out from PagerDuty that can now leverage runbook automation that you create, that your SREs, your DevOps engineers design securely to now dispatch across your infra to perform the auto remediation jobs, whatever those jobs may be, from cleanup to disk reindexing to Kubernetes redeployment. Really anything is possible from the standpoint of Rundeck. Rundeck provides a large archive of plugins that you can use for different pieces of your infrastructure, whether you're all cloud with AWS or Azure or Google, or if you're all on-prem. Rundeck has a large set of options for accessing the various resources you need. And again, it does it all through an agentless architecture. But I think the other big piece for me is now, how do I look at this pipeline? I'm the engineer, I'm the support engineer, I'm the DevOps engineer. Where in this pipeline do I interact? So the great thing about InfluxDB is I can now bring all that information back to InfluxDB. So while Rundeck is the final plug in the back end, there at the bottom, I can now bring all that information back into InfluxDB. So InfluxDB becomes my single pane of glass. Again, a platform made for developers allows me to create and design a single pane of glass so that I can now have all my reports, all my interactions right from InfluxDB. I don't need to switch to other platforms. Those platforms are off doing what they need to do, notifying the proper people. But me as the support engineer or I have one pane of glass that contains all the data, all the information I need up to date. So I'm kind of creating just a use case here and kind of starting with that idea of that virtual DevOps engineer. And that's something we say here, the virtual DevOps engineer. And in a typical use case, we always see the same type of division here. And you see that wall right there in the middle. You have support, you have customer care, you have developers, you have so many different things on one side of the wall. On the other side of the wall, you have DevOps and SREs. And this is the use case I hear so often. And that's the idea that I, as a support engineer, I need something done. I need something cleared. I've got a large log file that's just been created, and I need someone to come in from the DevOps side, because only they have the security, only they have the access, only they know what files need to be removed. So I need to tear you away from your value at work, have you jump on my server, take care of this, and not only take care of it, but I need you to now go into the incident management or ticket that got created for this, update that ticket with all the information, everything that you did, close the ticket and send it back out to me. So lots of toil task that take away from what the value add the SRE and DevOps teams are doing. We want to streamline that. We want to take those toil tasks out of their hands and really in two things, empower the support team and support engineers to be able to see and interact with what's going on while automating that entire incident end to end. So, and this really develops into so many different use cases. That virtual DevOps engineer, if I could have someone handling my deployments, if I could have someone going in and getting sensitive customer information and reporting it back to anyone in the business, customer care teams, all of it comes down to making sure I don't have anybody waiting, and I'm not passing on costly escalations to my team. So that's kind of the state and the use cases I hear often. Again, they take different turns in what teams are looking to accomplish, but always kind of that same idea of someone's coming at me, I've got to pause, I've got to stop, I've got to escalate. How do I get this done? I may already have automations done to do what they want, but I still have to go through the process of formalizing the ticket, updating the ticket, running the process, running my automated process, and then reporting out status to all the various stakeholders and individuals involved. So in that use case alone, there is automation, but it's not streamlined. So I want to look at how lots of teams streamline that. And with that, I want to actually switch over to the demonstration component of my setup here. And with that, I'm actually going to log into my InfluxDB Cloud. So I'm now logged into my InfluxDB Cloud, and InfluxDB Cloud, again, as I mentioned, is the SaaS offering from Influx. That's the scalable, reliable time series database that's built with that developer focus. And I'll talk about what that developer focus really means. But as I come into the cloud, you can see there's lots of different options for getting started. So loading data, building dashboards, setting up alerts, all the different things that I would want to do now with this time series metrics that I'm collecting. A quick tour of the InfluxDB Cloud. I've got a few things set up here. So if I go into my area of sources, I talked a little bit about why I like InfluxDB. There's so many different things I can do with their cloud setup. There are client libraries. So if I wanted to go off and build specific data load scripts based on Java, based on Go, based on JavaScript, I have lots of client libraries I can use and lots of examples. They also, for their Telegraph agent for collecting data across infrastructure, they have lots of pre-builts for that, whether you're working in databases or you're working in cloud structures like Azure, whether you're working on network gear like Cisco. I have lots of different collection methods with Influx. Influx also has various dashboards that can come with the system. So I have dashboards here that are part of the InfluxDB templates, and we'll dive a little bit more into that. But if I actually click into one of my dashboards, what you're seeing on the screen, I'll give a little screen resolution here. What you're seeing on the screen is I'm actively collecting data from my infrastructure. I don't have much out there. This is just a bit of a sample, but this is extremely scalable. So if you're talking hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of infrastructure endpoints and nodes, you could bring this all into the cloud and have these dashboards that allow you to compare infrastructure, move across from these dashboards. These dashboards are all open source, so I can actually make updates to them based on what is important to me and what I want to compare, what I would like to monitor. But out of the box, they give me a lot of best practice monitoring tips, a lot of best practice monitoring setups, everything from CPU to memory to disk usage. I can also have alerts, and I talked about the InfluxDB alert pipeline. And that alert pipeline is made up of 3 different areas. It's made up of a check. The check itself actually comes in and it allows you to define a query that you would like to check. So imagining your time series data is flowing in from your infrastructure and you want to monitor, in my case, I'm monitoring disk space on this check. So what I will do is actually change that to disk space so that I can be clear with it. So I'm monitoring disk space on this check. So I can define what it is I want to monitor. The lots of tools inside of InfluxDB Cloud for aggregating the metrics that are coming in. So I'm looking at the mean of disk space. I can look at many other different aggregation functions, from standard deviation to spread to median calculation. So all of that's available within here. I can then configure my check, and by configuring the check, I can now say how often do I want my alerting checks to happen. Lots of quick drop downs here. So I have everything from seconds to minutes to hours. So you thinking about what it is you want to check. I'm checking disk space. I've actually set mine for every 15 seconds. That's probably more than you'd want to check it, but for purposes of this simple demonstration, I've set it to be every 15 seconds. I can then actually have a status message that I pass along. So that status message can be customized, leverage several different templated values that are coming from InfluxDB. And then finally, I can set thresholds. So at what point do I want to have a threshold of critical, of warn, of info, several different thresholds I can set. But now based on whatever value I'm returning, I can set that threshold. And this is real-time data. So great thing about time series, I'm looking at real-time data. So as the data is flowing in, I'm seeing the metrics. So right now my disk space is at 65%. So I'm setting it for 68. So right now, if it goes above 68%, I would like to initiate an alert. So again, you have complete control over this. So I'd like to initiate alert. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. I've changed it to disk space. I can enable it. So I've set that up. The second piece of the alerting pipeline is the notification endpoint. So the notification endpoint in InfluxDB Cloud, it comes with several different notification endpoints you can add. If I clicked on the create option here, I could select from several different pre-builts. There are actually more. I just had a few loaded for mine. I was actually interested in PagerDuty, so I loaded PagerDuty, but there are several more. And you, as always, with platforms I want, I can build any one I want. So if there just really wasn't something there that I was looking to integrate with, Influx is designed around developers. I can go in and actually build an endpoint to point to a service that I can endpoint to. But I have one set up here for PagerDuty, and I can define what I'm looking for. So if I actually just go into my endpoint, not much to it. It's just I've defined it. It's PagerDuty. I'm letting I know what client I'm coming from, and then some information pertinent to your PagerDuty setup. So really easy. And then the final piece is my rules. So if I come over to rules, I can now from my rules define when the notification should happen. So I've defined a check. I've defined what the endpoint should go to, and now what should happen if that criteria, that threshold is met. So I can set that to monitor. I can set that notification to happen again on a schedule. And this is that idea that around noise. So let's imagine you have something that's flapping, and that's something I hear all the time. Maybe this is flapping, so you don't need it to fire every time. I can set up different thresholds. Maybe I can do aggregate windows of my time series metrics to determine if this is really an issue or not. I can define conditions. So in my particular condition, I'm looking for any time when this goes from okay to critical, I want to send a notification. So very basic, very straightforward in what gets set up with Influx. So all of these pieces are here in Influx. If I go back to my dashboard one last time, I also have Rundeck, a Rundeck dashboard. If I actually click on my Rundeck dashboard is actually made up of a couple of different pieces coming from Rundeck. So now I'm monitoring all of those automated workbooks and actions. So everything from the number of executions to if jobs are currently running, if jobs fail, what state they're in. So I can monitor my entire workbook automation in Influx as well too. So bringing it back to that idea that I can now see my infrastructure, I can now see my auto remediation through yet another template that's that I've imported into Influx, and I'll talk about how I got there. Really quick, the other two pieces of my pipeline. One is PagerDuty. So if I just click to the next tab, I have PagerDuty, and PagerDuty allows you to configure multiple different services to receive your alerts, perform the aggregation on those alerts, perform correlation, AI ops on those alerts. There's so much to the PagerDuty platform. I won't go into everything here. What I have set up is a alert service around disk space. So every time there's a disk space alert anywhere in my infrastructure, it'll come here to PagerDuty, and now I can define various mobilization and act routines for this. One of the routines I've defined in PagerDuty is that anytime disk space comes in from this particular piece of my infrastructure, go ahead and auto remediate that. Start the auto remediation job for me. So that's configured in PagerDuty to go ahead and say start that in the event of that. And then finally, in my pipeline, and I'm going to click over to Rundeck. So here is the Rundeck setup. So now I actually have my Rundeck defined for all of my automation workbooks. So I have several different workbooks in here that I pre-built, and this is the work that would be done by your SREs and DevOps teams. So now they can put their excellence and background in this. And this was the part about being reliable and secure. I wanted to be able to say now I can trust that this automation is going to happen because it's not someone's one-off script. It's not a script out of someone's home directory. It's not on someone's private machine. Everything is centralized here in Rundeck, and now I can audit it as an SRE and DevOps team. I can completely audit it. I can control how the access is occurring, how the security is occurring. If I actually click on one of my runbook jobs here, so I have one that's just file transfer, I can see a lot of details that are associated with it. But even more importantly, I can see all of the steps that are involved in this particular automated runbook. So in this particular step for file transfer, I'm performing 23 different odd steps, all made up of a lot of different pieces, everything from running commands to running scripts. So again, Rundeck will allow you to bring together anything you need for that execution. And I can also define a workflow strategy around that. So in this particular case, my workflow strategy for this specific runbook is quite a complex tree of executions. And each step in the tree can trigger a different pathway. So you can get quite a bit of complexity. So again, imagining now your monitoring has triggered this alert. PagerDuty has dispatched it to be automated. The automation now goes through all of these different steps to figure out exactly what's going on. So maybe at some step you find an error, it takes you down a different pathway, so on and so forth. So you can put a lot of intelligence into this execution. So so much more in the Rundeck interface, but I won't go into every piece of that. But what I will do now is we can switch gears and go over to the come back to the setup for InfluxDB. And what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to go ahead and start an InfluxDB job. Start a Rundeck job for kicking us off here. So I'll just go ahead and do that. So as I come back to my setup here, I'm playing that role. So I'm going to kind of step into that role of a support engineer, DevOps engineer, where I'm doing my monitoring of my infrastructure. So I have my dashboards in here. If I actually come back into my dashboards, and I'm going to look at just the last minute of data, and I'm specifically watching my disk space. So I knew I had around 65% of disk space. So I'm just specifically watching my disk space. So I just want to keep an eye on that. So maybe I'm watching that all day, and then all of a sudden I see that my disk space has actually jumped up to 78%. So at this point now, I might have my monitoring and my alerts set up to make sure this isn't a flap. This isn't something that's going to appear and reappear. So if I actually come to my alerts and I can actually check alert history here in Influx, it's letting me know that there was a critical disk space detected, right? Because I configured my disk space. There's a critical disk space detected, but I haven't actually fired a notification just yet. So that's me trying to protect the flapping. But if it continues for the next 15 seconds, so I can see they're still coming, then the notification will fire. So again, this is using Influx and that real-time ability and all of its development pieces to make sure I'm only firing on critical alerts. So this exceeded that threshold, so it's gone ahead and fired that critical alert. But again, I'm going to come back to my dashboards. I just wanted to show that for purposes of the webinar. But if I was actually on my dashboard, what I'd be actually just seeing is that my disk space is rising. I'm now up to 78%. So maybe I'm pretty worried as a DevOps engineer, but if you're me, you're just going back to bed, because if I actually come over to my dashboard for Rundeck, I can actually see that there's now a job running to remediate that disk space. So in the process of streamlining this entire incident, the incident has raised to a level where it needs to be addressed. I've proven that it's not noise. Influx has proven to me it's not noise. They've dispatched it to PagerDuty. PagerDuty has now recognized that this is coming from infrastructure that needs to be streamlined and remediated in an automated fashion, and a job gets fired. So now as the support engineer, if I were watching this, if this had now come to me, I don't have to switch to PagerDuty. I don't have to switch to Rundeck. I can stay right here in my Influx interface and see that my job is off and running right now. And if I just refresh that, keep refreshing it over time, I can see that that job's running and see that it's remediating. And once that job has reached the end of its remediation, it'll simply move into a state of completion and running. But I always know how many of these auto remediation jobs I have actively running, how many have succeeded, how many have failed, all the information I need. So again, I keep a single pane of glass. I don't want to have the idea of that single pane of glass. And I've actually added a lot of different metrics. I can have metrics that tell me the average of my execution, so I can understand if there might be something growing in my infrastructure where I need to go and work on the execution times. And as I just kept hitting refresh, that job is now complete. I can see I now have a new completed job. It gives me the time when that job was completed. So all the trace history information I've kind of bundled into here. So as a DevOps engineer, support engineer, I didn't worry. I knew that job was being remediated. I saw it. If I actually come back to my Linux dashboard now, and I'm gonna push that down to 1 minute here. Come back down to my Linux dashboard now. I can see I'm back down to 65%. Probably look better if I do it over 5 minutes. Yeah, so you get to see the good hill there. So I went from 78% looking to be pegged. Instantly, it was resolved for me. I know what the issue was because I could jump into my Rundeck dashboard, and yet I was able to do all this by staying within inside of my InfluxDB system. If I were just really curious on the alerting, I could come over to my alert history. I can see here's where that alert went critical. It went critical for a couple of checks because I wanted to make sure it wasn't a flap, and then it actually got resolved and came back into OK status. So all of that information is inside of my InfluxDB cloud, easy for me to monitor, keep tabs on without actually having to go to the other systems. If I did go to the other systems, so if I were in PagerDuty, and again, PagerDuty is now serving as that centralized hub for other stakeholders that are being notified in this process. If I did come into that, I could actually see the issue here. And I just want to come back into the issue that's maintained in PagerDuty so you could see all of the things that were taken care of. So as the issue was triggered by InfluxDB, it came into PagerDuty. It was instantly acknowledged. So acknowledged by the PagerDuty system for dispatch to Rundeck. So that means no engineer was awakened. So no one got paged, no one got pulled out of bed, no one got pulled out of any important work. It was automatically acknowledged. So again, streamlining that R. But the job also did several other things. It actually collected key information. So Rundeck now collected key trace information. So I want to know what it did. I want to know that I'm in control. So Rundeck collected all of the log information that was happening. It actually found the file that was offending the process, and it logs all of that here in PagerDuty. So now I, as a stakeholder or for postmortem processing and analytics, I can return to this and see everything that was done, what time it was done, and what the output of every automation command was done. Again, imagining right now we're just doing something very straight line, such as disk space. But if you were redeploying services in Kubernetes, if you were redeploying services in your Azure cloud, if you were doing resolutions on your database, on your Windows servers, all of the information, all of the logging could be easily added to this timeline here in PagerDuty that's now shared with that larger stakeholder group. The other thing that was also performed in an automated fashion, after it found the identifying file and resolved it, it also closed the issue. So now you're starting to look at that idea of your MTTR. How fast did it take me to get all the way to the end, resolve the issue, log everything, and close it? All of that done in an automated fashion. These are those toil tasks that DevOps and SREs would have to do. They'd have to go and get this information and copy it in and run this command and put in all the necessary information, close the ticket. The ticket now will notify all the various stakeholders that need to be notified, but they would have to do all this, and this takes so much time. And now we were able to do this all in an automated fashion that took less than a minute. So remediation in less than a minute of an issue like this that would normally take a team normally take a team another 30 minutes to resolve. And that includes acknowledging the issue, closing the issue, and notifying stakeholders. The piece that never gets talked about is that the team already had an automation script to remove large files, but they don't have it streamlined. They don't have the processes in place that put all of these together that now runs their automation. So between InfluxDB, PagerDuty, and Rundeck, I didn't add their automation. I just took what they had, streamlined it, and gave them multiple views of it. And then the final view here is in Rundeck. So if I actually come to Rundeck, and I could actually see all of the executions that happen here within my Rundeck automation book. So there's my space remediation. So if I'm now the administrator of my automated runbooks and I want to see how they're doing, I could come to Rundeck. I could see what the output of that space remediation was, when it removed it, what time it removed it, when it was run. I can see what servers it was run on. So I can see this was run on this particular IP address. I can look at each individual command of the disk space remediation. All of the data and trace history involved is still within Rundeck. Again, I've copied large portions of it up to PagerDuty because that's my centralized hub. But I also maintain a copy here that's very secure and also allows me to monitor all the activity for this job. So I can actually see how many times this job is run, when it's ever failed, why did it fail, and start to get a profile of the execution of this auto remediation. So this kind of takes us into those next steps. So that's an end-to-end look at moving through that type of streamlined pipeline. And hopefully what I get when I'm talking to a lot of teams is first and foremost, the best of breed for tools. I'm always stressing this. I want something I can develop on and that made it really easy. So in the case of Influx, I was able to develop on and monitor my infrastructure and add in Rundeck information. I was able to plug and play with industry standard tools like PagerDuty. I was able to quickly get to a remediation in one tool set. So I don't have to switch between this and PagerDuty and Rundeck or any other tool. Everything I needed to know was here in InfluxDB. And I think one of the things that makes that possible and drives that is the idea that InfluxDB has developer tool options, developer template options as part of the platform. So what do I mean by developer template options? Is, and I'll come over to my my tag here. InfluxDB provides these community templates that are made up of pre-configured solutions that you can deploy that handle everything from gathering the data to alerts to any queries or analytics that need to be run. Everything that makes up all of that you saw in those templates can be bundled in, that you saw in those dashboards can be bundled into a template. So now you can create templates for your infrastructure. If you had specific targets you want for your infrastructure, Influx has many right out of the box to address so many different needs, everything from My Linux to Windows, to Kubernetes, to Kafka. Really, so many different things you need to monitor are already available for you. And again, open source, meaning you can go in here and make modifications, change it, have it for your environment. It's in a GitOps manner, so now it can be stored in your repository, edited from the command line, updated, pushed out. So that also GitOps approach to now kind of having these predefined templates. And I was so happy with something like this because again, it lets me do what lets me create things I need. I actually created one for Rundeck. And I'm going to release this into the community. And this is the idea of open source and always sharing and getting the best. I created one for Rundeck. So the idea now that I have a report template that lets me monitor my active Rundeck jobs, my Rundeck automation. And again, it comes complete with everything that you need for deploying the telegraph monitoring, grabbing the right data, all the necessary queries and bucketing. Everything is already done through this template. So everything that I've done, I can now upload, you can download, play with it, use it as is, make updates to it. So again, giving me everything I want to do as a developer. So I often do this just to kind of showcase the idea of how we got to where we were with this particular setup, and that is by taking a step back. So when I think about all the pieces that are deployed now in the InfluxDB cloud, All of this came from deploying the various templates that I just talked about. So what I always want to show just how fast this can be with tools like InfluxDB. So what I did while I was just saying that is actually went and I deleted everything out. Should be last one deleted out. You can see all my dashboards are starting to fade out. Looks like I had one more in here. I thought I deleted it out. But if I actually come back to my various sources and buckets, I deleted everything out. These are the template buckets. So I've actually just tried to reset this system to a state where there's nothing left. So I have one here that's derelict. I don't know why. I'll just do that one manually. There, so I'll just do that one manually. So what I wanted to do was just reset this. I think I've deleted my alerts as well too. Yeah, so my alert pieces are gone. I created this one manually. So I've deleted out all my pieces. So the idea being that how can I get from where I was to a state of quick monitoring, of quick streamline, of streamlining this process. And this is where Influx really makes all of these pieces easy. So I've turned this back to just a completely empty setup. I'm gonna close this out. I've turned this back to a completely empty setup, so I don't have dashboards, I don't have anything. What I'm going to do now is switch screens. I can't switch my screen if I can. And what I'll do here is the following. And what I really just want to showcase to everyone is how easy it is to get up and running with Influx. And I think that's the biggest piece that I really love about seeing Influx and kind of working with some of the pieces that it delivers on. So I'm gonna bring this over here. And I'm just bringing over I'm just bringing over my setup here. I might be able to get it over into the other screen. Looks like it doesn't want to let me go over to the other screen. I don't know why, but I will here somehow. Nope, won't let me do it. Maybe I can do it another way here. So all I'm doing right now is I wanted to kind of showcase how I can get back up and running really quick. So can't seem to get my screen into the screening area here. So if I can't, then I'll simply just do it and kind of talk through it without really worrying about how it got through. But really what I'm focusing on is these templates and how I can quickly load them up just from the command line using InfluxDB. Let me see here if I can get one of these down. Maybe now I can bring it over. So I'll take one more shot at it. Okay, hopefully now that's coming into your view, and hopefully that's coming to view here. So all that to kind of get to this idea of how can I now leverage InfluxDB templates from a standpoint of going from 0 to having everything I need. So all those templates that I have in GitHub, I've actually downloaded them locally. Influx comes with a nice CLI to allow me to manage again those pre-configured templates locally. Again, that idea of being able making updates. So if I actually go into the community set here and just do a list, here are all those same templates that I was just looking at locally on GitHub. But what I wanted to show is that now from my command line, and I think I have it in my command history, I could actually just go out and say, I want to load up one of those templates into my cloud instance. So if I actually select the template I want, and this is the Linux template, by selecting the template I want using the InfluxDB command line, it gives me a list of all the different attributes that will be placed into my cloud instance. So everything from labels to my Telegraph configuration, so what it'll collect, to those dashboards we were just looking at, to buckets. Everything that I need for this pre-configured solution is already bucketed and ready to be loaded in. So in one click, it'll give me and let me know this is what's going to be loaded in. It's highlighted in green to let me know it hasn't been committed yet. And now if I go and just say yes, it'll re-highlight everything in yellow to let me know everything has been committed. So hopefully what I'm now able to show here is that in one click, I was able to take everything that was part of one of these templates and load it into my cloud. And now I'm up and monitoring my infrastructure. So now if I come back to my cloud, and I do a quick refresh, I can see now I have a Linux system. It's pushed out my dashboard. It's pushed out my telegraph. I'm now instantly collecting data from my little infrastructure. If I go back into the dashboard now, it's instantly up and running. You can see it's just getting started because I just repushed it. So I'm just now collecting data. But all of the bits and pieces that I needed to get up and monitor my infrastructure were done in one click. I didn't do anything else but just download and push that data out. So easy for developers. And now I can make my own with Rundeck. So I can now go ahead and do the same thing with Rundeck. If I actually went back, I could just push the Rundeck one in and make changes and update that. So really highlighting, all of those developer focused capabilities in the Influx cloud. So what I want to do there is kind of bring us back. So that's really what I look at, and when I talk to so many people about streamlining that process, what that streamline looks like. So starting from that proactive monitoring, starting from a system that lets me collect all the time series data across my infrastructure, bring it in, monitor for the noise, run the various analytics I need, dispatch to the incident management platform of my choice, and then bring it into runbook automation. So from this, I took away a lot, and I'm now to share this with other teams that I engage with. I now have a Rundeck template for InfluxDB. Again, I'll be releasing that, but really bringing all the best of breed technologies together to do this type of streamlining. So PagerDuty, Rundeck, InfluxDB, I would say better together. So I will stop there. And I just wanted to thank everyone for spending some time with me today. Hopefully there was some good information in there, but always want to hear from teams and what they're doing, individuals, if you're saying anything different. So let me hand it back to Sharon. And Sharon, thank you.
Thank you, Craig. That was really awesome. I really appreciate that. And I know our audience did too. We had some great questions come in. Unfortunately, we've only got a couple minutes till the top of the hour. So what we're going to do, folks, if you submitted a question, we're going to gather those all up, send them over to Craig, and he's going to be able to follow up with you offline. All right. So with that, I'm just going to wrap up here real quick. Just a reminder that the session has been recorded. So if you missed any or all of it, you'll be able to go back and watch it again. We will send you an email with instructions to access the webinar on demand, or you can visit us at devops.com/webinars. It'll be there for you as well. All right, so while Craig was doing his demo, I went ahead and drew the names for our Amazon gift card winners. And those winners today are Andy V, Wayne L, Marie G, and Jeff L. Congratulations to all our winners. We will be sending you an email with instructions for claiming your gift card. If you don't see it in your inbox, please make sure to check your spam folders. All right. Thank you, Craig, so much again for that amazing presentation and demo. And thank you so much to the audience for tuning in with us today. If you check the handouts tab real quick on your console, there's some really great info there, as well as a download of Craig's presentation today. So with that, thank you again. Have a great day. I am Sharon Florentine signing off.